This episode is sponsored by us here at Elevated Lifestyle Lab. We're offering 30% off the entire month of July, guys. Enter coupon code FREEDOM at the checkout screen and enjoy 30% off the full month of July, guys. Go to elevatedlifestylelab.com, enter code FREEDOM at the checkout screen and get 30% off. If you spend over $100 in your cart, we'll cover shipping for you guys. We hope you enjoy this episode. All right, guys, welcome back to the Carousel of Life podcast. I got my boys Jimmy and Paul here again. How we doing, guys?
Great. Unbelievable.
Awesome. Well, we are here with episode number 5. We have a cool topic today that we're talking about. It's going to kind of give an umbrella for a few different categories, but it's going to include marriage, relationships, kids, and family. Basically being on the carousel of life in those type of categories. And I kind of umbrella it as far as including a lot of those in the same conversation because they kind of fall under it that way. But I'll kind of start as far as getting off the carousel, what that kind of means for me through my marriage and close relationships around me is, sometimes you'll find yourself, I work a lot of long hours and I'll find myself coming home doing the same thing. And it's the same story you hear all the time, right? Like you work all week, you work 40 to 60 hours a week, you come home and it's just the same routine that you go through. I've got 2 younger kids, a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old. I mean, they're screaming most of the time. We rarely get a chance to like sit down and have a conversation kind of like we're doing now. So that becomes my carousel. The biggest part the last few years with my wife is just falling in the same thing as like, oh, hi, honey, hi, how you doing? Stop doing that, kids, this and that. And then by the end of the day, it's like we don't catch up on anything we've talked about. And then you can feel the energy of that as it goes on, right? Like you'll start to realize like you haven't really shared any thoughts, any ideas, any goods, any bads of any sorts, and that kind of starts creeping in, and I've went through it enough now to where I've kind of picked up on it, and she's obviously picked up on it because she's made me aware of it.
And we wonder why our kids, when we get to the dinner, at dinner, and we say, "So what did you learn in school today?"
Yeah,
they say nothing.
Yeah, exactly. The same thing, man. So that's in regards to that for the carousel, that's where it kind of hits home for me in regards to the marriage for me is it just becomes a routine of like, and it's hard. It's hard being, with the kids at that age and getting home at 7 and still having to, do dinner and shower and get ready for bed. It's just it's tough. But now I make steps and prioritize or make it a schedule, like at the beginning of the week, like, all right, we're going to set a date night or we're going to go do X activity where we can maybe drop the kids off or, spend that time or even FaceTime, during work one day where we can have some quiet time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's like, it's just trying to be able to find the balance of that because it's, in the past, it's kind of burned bridges for me with her is, especially early in the marriage, just because when you stop communicating is when all hell breaks loose, right? It's like if you're not paying attention to how she's feeling, she's not paying attention to how you feel. If you're happy, if you're sad, if you want to do things, if you don't want to do things, and if you're not sharing all that, man, it's just like any old timer would tell you, like what's the key to a long relationship? Most of them are going to say communication. So it's like that's where it all kind of ties back to me is by getting on the carousel, it eliminates a lot of communication with all those categories. If it's relationships with closer friends with me, if with kids, same thing with my kids, right? Like I'll get caught on this carousel. And I was just telling Jimmy this before, or I guess both of you guys, you were here. I was telling you guys this before we started. I get home 3 years ago, when my kids were like 2 years old, 3 years old, and there wasn't much talking going on with them. They're still babies. So it's like as long as they're fed, they're happy, it's fine. But now my son's 6. He's turning 6. He's asking real questions and wants real answers. And it's came to my attention when he's repeated stuff that I've told him. Like, I've got to take these things pretty seriously. Between now and the age of 7 is when like a lot of these traits kind of get picked up later in life for them. So it's that's been my carousel with the kids. It's just making sure that I'm present and in the moment. Just because it's become real easy to just put on a movie like, no, let's watch the Avengers and like let's not talk about X, Y, and Z. And I was telling you also, I picked up on this thing about a week and a half ago, which I thought was interesting. I just picked the kids up from my mom's house. We were driving home, had the whole family in the car, and my son Sebastian he was about to say the word stupid, like, oh, that was like stupid or something. And I was like, I caught him. I'm like, oh, no, we don't, why are you saying that? And he had mentioned something about a bully or something. And it's not unrare or uncommon for him to say something like that because he watched a lot of these ninja YouTube videos. But the way he said it, he just started a new summer camp, so it made me kind of start asking more questions, like, who's the oldest kid at the camp? How old is he? What's his name? And then I found out it's this kid that's been bullying him, I just thought it was really interesting because I almost didn't pick up on it, right? Because I'm kind of like an autopilot driving, like, oh, I just want to get home, take a shower, go to bed, right? Like I'm on this carousel, like just get me home, get me in bed, turn on the Netflix to just get me out of my head. But it's like, no, I'm glad that I was able to pick up on that thing because I was on the carousel rocking hard, man.
No, dude,
So.
you nailed it. No, seriously, because
Yeah.
like that's exactly right. You were able to pick up the words he was using was not how he normally would use those words, and you were not on the carousel.
Yeah.
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 So for context, let's real quick. How long have you been married, and how many kids do you have, and what are their ages?
Good point. So I've been married 7 years, and I have 2 kids: a 6-year-old, he'll be 6 in August, and a 3-year-old.
Okay, and I've been
Boy and
married
girl.
15 years this December. We have two kids, 2 girls. They're both 7. They're adopted, which we'll probably talk about here in a bit. They're adopted 6 months apart, so basically twins without the biological connection. What about you?
So
Jim?
Saturday was 11 years.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
yeah, and we have 2 kids adopted, 10 and 8.
Nice. And I do want to say this too before we go on. If you don't have kids, please also listen to this episode because this is going to help you. Because, Rob and I have been married for a long time. We got married. She was 23 and I was 20. And we didn't have kids for the first 5 or 6 years of our marriage, whatever that was. We wasted that time. And, it was a good time, but like I look back, we could have done so much more with our lives, health, fitness, traveling. But we were on a carousel. We were just kind of doing life. And I feel like, I wasted some valuable time early on. So that being said, even if you're single, if you don't have kids, like you got to prepare for this.
Yeah, just for relationships in general.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, there's a lot of key foundational points. One being communication that carries through for any relationship.
Yeah,
just staying on top of that. What about you, Jimbo?
No, it's you were present, and that's one of my. I know it's overused, but that was a great time for you to just be present in that moment. And relationships in general, that's exactly what you want. I think for the most part, you can tell when you're having a conversation with someone. I don't care if it's business. It could be a family gathering, and when they're not there.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Whether they're looking around the room, whether they are fidgeting. I mean, for God forbid they have their phone out. But I mean, you can just tell when someone's not present. So when you talk about relationships, it's about saying, this individual's time, their words that they're saying to me right now are more important than what's going on around me. So I'm going to stop, I'm engaged, and I'm just going to listen to what this other human is trying to tell me, and I'm going to interact. And when you do that, then all of a sudden that's where that great relationship happens. I mean, I've got guys that, in my office where, they say one of our producers, like, wow, he's just like a really genuine person. He probably doesn't talk at all, but he will sit there and listen. So I think just in general, whether it's, and I'm glad you brought that up, Paul, you don't have to have kids listen to this podcast. It's all about understanding relationships, whether it's business and there's so many different things that it spreads out over all of our, relationships that we have with people. So I think we're going to go over some pretty good tools. And just to back up a little bit, when you're talking about like the old timer, you didn't look at me, which I appreciate. So,
I was thinking about you.
I think that we have a pretty good spread of intellect. Things that we've done in our life events. I think it'll be a pretty good, pretty good podcast.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's we'll be able to cover a lot of these different. I'll call them categories, but I guess just people closest to us, whether it be the wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, even family members. I had it on one of the bullet points to kind of go over as far as getting off the carousel in regards to, I call it like new family versus old family, meaning like we all have like our new family now, right? We have our wives, we have our kids, and like this is our family that we're building, right? But then we all have our family that we grew up with, right? We have our siblings, we have parents, if we're still blessed to have some around.
But we also have our new friends that are like family, and we have our friends that we were
that's a very
high school.
good point. Yeah,
So it goes. It's the same. Yeah,
same thing. And it's you can definitely get caught in this carousel where you're trying to please maybe the wrong side, or this came to me about 4 or 5 years ago. I really had to prioritize and make it a point, because that's when it kind of hit me. Is like, I have my own family now, right? Like I was on the carousel of kind of pleasing maybe one side of the family that I grew up with, and not realizing like I'm neglecting the family that I'm building, right? And being able to show my son different things, and just being fully committed to my new family, and it's I think there's several ways that can get interpret it in as far as what your family situation is. But it crossed my mind, and I saw it on a movie too this weekend, so it kind of made me bring it up as well, as far as kind of battling the relationship with maybe your parents that are kind of still pulling you back because they think you're still their little baby or not. But that's just another.
It wasn't a Disney movie, was it?
It might have been Corella. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's something that I went through early on in my marriage. So like I said, we got married when I was 20. It was actually 9 days before my 21st birthday, and Robin had to buy the champagne because I was not old enough on our honeymoon. So we went on a honeymoon, and she had to buy
forgot about that.
That's great.
Yeah, so and on like I mentioned on one of the other episodes, grew up in the conservative Christian church, still hold some of the same values, but they've changed a little bit. They've kind of morphed into something different. But I went from basically literally living at my parents' house, because that's kind of what you did in that time period. I grew up in like purity culture and stuff like that. My wife and I don't mind sharing this, like we lost our virginity on our wedding night. Like I'm the only guy that she kissed, and we did according to that sphere of influence, like we did everything right. So we kind of grew up through that. But the point is like I went literally from living at my parents' house to being married. I was not on my own. I had no college experience. Like I went to college, but it actually didn't end up even graduating. I'm like a class away from a degree, but I got some certifications and stuff like that in IT. But that was a shock to the system. Literally going from living at home to learning how to be an adult and be married. So that came with its
double
own.
whammy.
That came with its own huge struggles, and it took a lot of years to undo that. And that was that thing where you're saying like, I just kind of was still attached to my mom and my dad and my family. And there sometimes that happens now, but I definitely have broken free. I mean, I'm 35. That was 15 years ago. So I've broken free from that for the most part. But there are times where that will creep in. But it was a huge struggle.
But that's normal.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
I
it
don't
is
care
normal.
who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, but when that creeps in, like you understand, you acknowledge it.
Yeah.
You don't give it power, or you do,
Yeah.
because there's certain things that creep in from my family upbringing that I'm like, wow, that was amazing. I'm gonna keep doing that.
Yep.
So we have a choice. Do we give
Yeah.
it power or not?
Yeah. And so one of our first fights, like, so Robin and I, again, just because of our upbringing and how we met and stuff. So we met in January, started dating in February, were engaged in July, and got married in December. So all within the same year, met and got married. So again, that's just how you did it back then in that sphere of influence. It was just a thing. So a lot of people think that's crazy. And honestly, sometimes it is. And I have personal friends of mine that followed that same path.
I did too.
They're not married
Within
to the
like
same
6
person.
months.
Yeah, it was done.
Yeah.
It was done. So that being said,
But how many people do you know that didn't take that path at all, that did the right way,
Right.
and within 6 months
They're out.
yeah,
Yeah.
So our first fight, like this is totally a testament to what that dynamic was. Like I don't think we were married yet, because we had it was right before our wedding day, and we had rented a condo that we were going to move into, and we're like buying stuff for the house, so like paper towels and just random things like that. So we get to the laundry detergent aisle, and I grabbed one and I put it in the cart, and Robin's like, "Oh, which laundry detergent are you getting?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm just getting this one," and she's like, "Well, I think I kind of want this one." And I was like, well, no, this is the one I grew up using. This is what my mom used. Like this is what we have
love
to
the
use.
smell.
Yeah, exactly. So that was literally our first, and that caused it wasn't a big fight, but that caused like a rift, and that was the start of that. I was like, holy shit, like
Welcome to the married life.
There's Miracle Whip and there's mayo. And sometimes on that first date, you need to kind of work that out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that was the starting point of just working through some of those things, and I tell you what, having to do that, because Robin did go off to college, so she was more of an adult than I was in certain ways, because she had been away from her parents and I hadn't, so she was a little more mature in that way, and obviously she was 23 when he got married, so she had a few years on me, but working through that was extremely difficult, and I think that was a major catalyst to me being on the carousel for so long, and then finding ourselves in those routines that you were talking about. And like, my kids are young, and like when I get home, I was trying to explain this to actually one of my guys at work today. Young guy, he's coming to me for personal development stuff, because I talk about it at work all the time and stuff like that. And he's trying to develop some good habits, and I think he's 26, 27. And I'm trying to get him to understand what his life is like after marriage and when kids start to come, because like he goes home, makes dinner for himself. He's a single guy. Like he can play video games. He can kind of hang out, and he's telling me how busy he is. And I'm like, no, you're not busy.
Impossible.
No, you're not busy. But that's the reality, is like, I used to also think that when I didn't have
Sure.
kids, and it's just like, even now I catch myself thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. Like, so who is looking at me that's farther in life, that's looking at my situation going, you have no idea what you're talking about.
So, but this is the thing too. I have a theory. It's called the plate theory.
Okay.
And because I used to look at people who said they had a full plate, and I'd see what they had going on. I'm like, no, you don't. But I realized very quickly that some of us are able to take on more. So I realized that I have like a huge like server
You
plate.
have a platter.
and this person has a saucer.
Yeah.
Now it's full. It really is. But as we grow, and I'm curious some of the tools that you use, because you said that you went through some moments where it was tough, and you're now leaving your family unit, and now you're creating a new family unit. So I'm curious what tools you used. But as we get older, we acquire more and more tools where now we can take on more. So we're all busy.
Yeah.
Every single human on this planet is busy.
Yeah.
Now, what they're doing with that time and how much they can take on is very, very different. So I think that when we're young, it's a saucer, and then after a while, it's a serving tray that that we can take on a lot.
The interesting thing about that is like, I've been on my personal development journey for 4 or 5 years or so, somewhere around that time frame. Before that, so let's call it 10 years before that, I was like incrementally getting better. And when I say incrementally, I mean like millimeters. Like, I was getting better, but it was so minute, and I struggled with the same things for so long. And things did change and things did get better, but until I understood some of the things that I went through with personal development. So I found, and this is a great resource, another podcast, Anatomy of Marriage podcast, and I mentioned it earlier, Seth and Melanie Studley. When I started diving into that, and growing up in the church, and we'll talk about that when we talk about spirituality, but growing up in the church, they have a problem. They look at like spirituality and mental health as two separate things. Like, the church is really bad about addressing mental health.
Yeah.
So when I started going down the path of mental health and understanding like psychology and things like that, that's what actually equipped me to be tactful and really attack the little things in my marriage. So those are the tools. So, one of the things that we started off early on that personal development journey that I learned from Seth and Melanie, I learned growing up that marriage was like a fruit smoothie. You take both your fruits and you throw it in a smoothie and you blend that shit together, and that's not true, because you've lost your identity in that. So what it is a fruit salad.
Yeah.
You cut the fruit up, throw it in a bowl, and mix it together. It's kind of the same thing, but it's each fruit can shine on its own. So it was all about that individuality, and that's one of the things that Robin and I struggled with for, like I said, 10 years, was just our individuality. So I was learning how to be an adult. I wanted to do my own thing, and I'm the loud, obnoxious, emotional one in our relationship. I overpower her. She's quiet. So you have a comment? You have
Two of those three were accurate. I wouldn't say obnoxious.
So I overpowered her constantly, and my way was always the way, and I just buried her in who I wanted to be, in my personality and stuff like that. And she was, because she's quiet, she just kind of goes with the flow. So I basically literally dug a grave for her personality for 10 years, and I buried it for 10 years, and I just kept digging and digging and digging, and I would throw it in there. And so now she's had, over this 4 to 5 years, she's had to re-find herself, basically. And it hurts me to think about what I did and the damage that I did, and it was a real thing. But we've obviously come out of it strong, and it's been good. But until I understood just little things like that, that's what helped me understand that her opinion does matter. And I'm a people pleaser. I'm the salesman. That's my personality. So when you're in a marriage like that, and you have that salesperson and a quiet person, I tended to please everybody else around me but my immediate family. And that was actually something that I kind of learned growing up. That was an aspect of my family, within my immediate family. We were always concerned about what was going on everywhere else, but and I think this is probably true for a lot of people. We neglected the things that were closest to us.
Sure.
So that was a lot, but that's kind of the breadth of the large problems that we dealt with really, really early on. So.
Yeah, I can relate as far as me and my wife, kind of the same thing. Like my wife's quiet; she's from another country. English is her second language. So for the first few years, I was all about my self development and listening to Tony Robbins and like full bore. Like Jimmy, you remember when all this kind of kick started. My wife's really not about all that stuff, but in the same aspect, did the same thing, right? Like I'm out, I'm hammering, I'm doing this. It's all about me and and the family, but it's just all me growing, me doing this. And she's still kind of even just learning how this culture works, right? So I'm just like taking the reins but that just fails over time, right? Because I'm not showing her anything. I'm not explaining how things
You've
work.
left her behind.
Yeah, I'm not including her in anything.
Yeah.
So it took a few years, but it came to a head when we were just basically disconnected. She didn't, I'm unloading all this self-development stuff at the dinner table, and she's just like, whoa, no. I'm like, no, it has zero interest for her, which is fine.
Yeah.
This is, it only, not everybody gets down with it, but I can completely agree. It's like you get on that carousel, and it's just like, go, go, go. But then you realize, like, no, you have your better half, you're kind of smothering behind you.
You can. So when we were in St. Louis, that was one of the pivotal things that one couple got up and spoke about. When you go home, just don't throw up all over them. So this is the thing that I've learned. So
That
I
couple's
remember,
divorced, by the way.
just because
Really?
listen,
Crazy.
just because someone has something of value doesn't mean that they actually execute it in their own life. And I've learned that a long time ago.
Oh yeah.
That's a good,
So I've
that's good.
I've had great advice on how to stay married from people who are no longer married. No, it's true. It's because for my accountant to tell you, well, you should do this, and I'm like, well, the car you drive, the house you live in, that doesn't matter. Just because that person maybe isn't living that life, like, we have a very easy way to be able to tell people what they should or shouldn't do. But to go back real quick, so I've been in the personal development since I was 19, very long time. I'm very blessed in that world. So I would see in the beginning of my understanding personal development, I thought the spouse had to do all the events, had to read all the books. I mean, that's just what we thought, because like if two people are flying in a different direction, all of a sudden one takes a pivotal turn. Well, you go out 10 years from there and they're not even in the same, atmosphere.
Yeah.
But what I realized is you just need whoever it could be, a wife who is taking on a new job and she's just excited about it. Just encourage and let that person know why you're doing it.
Yeah, that's
They don't
huge.
have to read the book.
Yep.
They don't have to go to the seminar. They just have to know why you're doing it. And if you remind them, that's where people leave. They say, well, what is it about our life that we're living right now that they're so upset that now they need to go out and find something different? Does that mean a different spouse? Does it mean a different family? Do they want to live in a different city? No. I'm doing X because I think for our family unit or spouse, or if you're just doing it for yourself, but I think that I've turned a lot of my opinion on that, because when you are just going full tilt, if that person loves you and they feel like they're included, like they're actually on the train with you, they're a big fan.
Yeah.
They're supporting you.
Yeah.
However, when they think that you're going somewhere with the destination that they don't have a ticket for, that's when you get that pullback. That's when
yeah.
you get that
Yep.
concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened with me. I used to road cycle, like Tour de France style, like a lot of miles before we had kids. And Robin mentioned it to me, and this is so, it's so jarring to relive this, but like it was amazing how much I didn't include Robin in things that I did. So I was like just going and trying to do, and I wanted to cycle, and I loved it, and I was going with groups and stuff like that. And she had mentioned, like, oh, maybe I can cycle with you. And my immediate thought was, you'll never keep up with me. I'm not. I don't want to go out with you because I'm trying to get a workout. Like you're not up to my level. Like this is not going to be good for me. And that was devastating to her.
Yeah, she just wanted to connect.
Yeah, she did. And through that, she actually did end up getting a bike, and we did do an event together. We actually did a 100-mile bike ride together, and it was awesome. But there are times where I had to reduce what I was doing so that I was able to connect. And that's I think that's the point, is like you have to be able to pull yourself back and realize that you need to take your partner, your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend with you on that journey. Like, and it's okay to like just pull back on that in order to make sure that they feel included or whatever.
Yeah, it's important because if they see you going full bore off, your hopes, your goals, your dreams and stuff, and you're not putting any time towards the relationship, they can see that. Like you're spending all this time doing all this stuff, and you're giving shit time to our relationship, and that's what it came to a head with, several years ago for us. It's like same thing what you were saying. It's just like you have to just explain to them why you're doing it. For me, it was just like a burning desire. I have to make these changes for our family. I feel like it's the best. She didn't understand me waking up at 3 a.m. You're freaking crazy. I hate being. That's when the kids were really young. She's waking up early, and I'm out, doing things and working and training and stuff. And it came to a headway. She was just like, like I'm just not digging it. But I never had like sat down with her and told her kind of like my vision, like how I feel like this is going to benefit all of us.
Yeah.
And then from then on, man, it's been super supportive, man.
That's
It's
awesome.
been, nothing but.
And there may be times where you have to say no to those other things.
And that's the other part I was getting to.
Yeah.
Is where that's why I was saying like you have to kind of prioritize. Like I do a 6-day race. I'm out of town for 9 days. Well, I got to make sure when I get back, like I'm not still working 60 hours a week and only home for 2 nights of the week. Like so now I have to you have to sketch out these times to where you have to. As hard as you're chasing your dreams and your business life and all the achievements you're trying to do, you have to do the same for the marriage. It's crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously kids add a whole nother dynamic to that.
Man. It's such a journey.
Yeah, no, it is.
I have no clue what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Especially so like Robin, she's been both a stay-at-home mom and she's worked full-time. She's actually going back to a stay-at-home mom. She might work part-time now, but for the last 2 years she's worked full-time. And I tell you what, because I own my own business, I make my own schedule. I don't have to answer to anybody at this point, and it's fantastic. But having to go back to answering to somebody else's schedule, because she's a teacher. She had to be at work at a certain time and had to be there until a certain time. So that added another dynamic to our lives, and I'm thankful that's over.
Yeah.
And I just we can kind of focus on building my business together, and that's we've evolved, from me basically not wanting to include her in cycling to me wanting to include her in helping me build my business. So
sweet.
And I, not a lot of people can say that they want their spouse to join them on journeys like that, and
So if we have people that are listening that are, when it comes to their family life, are exceptional. Let's say they're amazing at their church. They're always getting pulled, because they volunteer, they take care of their family, but they're not good at business. Like, how can we take some of the things we've talked about and then flip it on how some of those people can now use some of those tools and be able to then use it in business? Because, there's a lot of people that at the end of the day, we can only be so good at so many things.
Yeah.
I had a buddy of mine call me the other day, a new business he wanted to start, and I reminded him that entrepreneurs, we have more ideas than we have time.
You're always telling me that, yeah.
Because you have to. You have to, because every third day I come with a new business. So we always have to slow down and say, okay, like, how can I get better in the areas that are very important to me and the skill set that I'm very good at? I think the great thing about this whole era that we're living in right now is that people are being very transparent. They're talking about exactly what happens in a business, talking about how they feel, like, emotionally. Because, we had books. We could kind of get a little bit of the author's footprint or theory on how you should run a company. However, you get to actually have communication with someone and hear their true thoughts and how they have doubts. And the event I did 2 weeks ago, my wife asked, she goes, "You think about quitting?" I'm like, 13 times I thought about quitting.
Yeah.
So I think that people, they don't realize that, they think, well, I'm very good in this area of my life and I'm not in others. But they don't think that those characteristics they have can move back and forth between business and life.
Yeah.
So I think some of the tools that you mentioned about, understanding how to lead from behind, where leadership does sometimes you have to go full board, but you have to sometimes stop and then bring your team with you.
Yep.
Those are very critical in business and in our family life.
Yeah, and I tell my team constantly, we actually, because we do IT support for businesses, the people that we support don't know as much as we do about technology. So, if we want to be blunt about it, us to them, they look stupid.
Right.
They're not stupid. They don't know. So there's ignorance there. But I tell people constantly to never underestimate that level of ignorance or the level that they don't know. So I need to do that with my team. So obviously we've been growing this company. Me and my business partner have been growing this company, and my employees are doing awesome. I love my team, but there's sometimes where I just look at them like, what in the hell were you thinking when you did this, or like what's going through your brain, like, and just taking the time to really understand and take a step back and teach them. I mean, that's just the reality. And the point is just never underestimate a person's ignorance. I don't know if you've got a better word for that, but
No, ignorance is a word that has such a negative thought behind it, and
Yeah.
it's not at all.
Yeah.
Like my son the other day, he mentioned something. I said, well, I'm ignorant to that. He looked at me and said, Dad, I said, Joey, that's not a bad word. You have something in your brain, a knowledge capacity on this certain subject that I don't, so why don't you teach me? So ignorant is not, it's not a bad word. It's probably the most effective word in what you're describing.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
fits there.
And in communication, I mean, that's huge within the business. Like that's something we're going through. Again, we run big migrations and projects and stuff like that for businesses, and again, the IT support side of things. Like communication is so important, and communicating well is even more important. So actually getting to a point where you're communicating, that's important. But then communicating well and actually taking the time and taking the extra step to read through the email, make sure that you've outlined everything properly and you're communicating what you need to communicate. You're leaving, if there's proactively thinking of questions that might come up based on what you're saying, is huge, because that's a huge thing that we struggle with constantly in our business. One of the big things, like with our projects team, was they get busy doing the project. They get so busy doing the project, in the project, we give a company a quote. We say, hey, it's going to be 100 hours. Well, they get busy doing that project and they're reaching like 90 hours, and they know that project's actually going to go over, and they haven't actually told the client, like, hey, we're going to have to bill you for more time. And we had an issue with a client like that because they were just so busy with the project. And we went back, we sent a bill, didn't communicate, and we went like 20 hours over. Now the scope of that project expanded, but we didn't communicate that. We just did the work. So we didn't take the time to communicate that, hey, we were going to go over 20 hours, and the business owner was pissed. And she was like, if you guys expect me to pay this, I'm going to fire you. And we obviously we rewrote that time off, but so we had to take a loss on that. But taking the time to communicate. And one of the things I think in business, and I try to encourage my team with this, and this has been actually a thing in my current or my past jobs, pick up the freaking phone. Yeah. Like, don't send an email. And there's times where I have to look at my team dead in the eye. I'm like, don't you send a fucking email for this. You pick up the fucking phone and you make that call. Like you can't send an email. You need that personal touch. You need to be there to answer any questions. They need to hear that you're empathetic to their situation, whatever it is. Just connecting with people appropriately through any of that connection, or that communication.
Yeah, I agree. Like you're saying, Jimmy, an example of somebody's got an awesome family life at home and they're thriving in that and they feel like they're doing well. How can they transfer that over to their business? And it's basically like what you guys say is communication. I feel like communicating the same way you do with your family. If you're there and you're interacting with them, you feel like you have a good bond with the family and you're killing that sector. You just got to roll that over into the business, right? Like whatever business you're doing, you have your own business, you're working for someone, and it's important to bring that energy as well. Because if you're thriving in your family life, most likely you're going to have really good energy, and you're going to be the guy or the dad or the mom or somebody that's always going to want to go out and do things and be active and do activities and do that type of stuff. And if you can roll that energy, that attitude over into the business, it's really going to help you kind of move forward in that. Because I found myself with the numerous amount of shitty jobs that I've had, if you switch the attitude, like, oh, I got to go to fucking work today, and you talk with people rather than just doing the bare minimum. You always do a little bit extra, just like you would if you're family, right? Like you're doing extra stuff for the wife. I washed those dishes, honey. I took the trash out. Like, do the same shit at work, right? Like you're not getting paid to do this or do that, but if you're going to start seeing the rewards from tightening up those areas. So I would just say carry over those same disciplines and same routines and energy and vibe that you have with whatever you're doing, excelling at. If you have a cool group of friends that you guys are doing weekly things together and you're like, this is the best friendship ever, like just carry that over, right? Like you probably have a schedule with those guys. You probably have a group text with those guys. Like carry that over to the business, right? Like get a group text with the people that work with you and like share ideas and brainstorm and mastermind, kind of like we're doing, right? Like just share all that stuff that you've been doing doing in whatever area you feel like you've been, excelling at in the life, and just carry that over to the business. I feel like it all works together. That's kind of why I got into just doing endurance training and ultra running. Like, it all kind of ties together, right? Like the pain and the suffering and the looking inside and all that stuff goes back into like how I live my life and how I operate my business and show up for my family. It all kind of intertwined. So that would be my 2 cents on, if you're thriving in one area, just look at what you're doing well in that group and just shift it over a little bit.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, which we all probably run into, and I think it's one of the topics, I think, on episode 8, but it's like work-life balance. Like, oh, well, I'm doing all this stuff to be a great family man, but now if I carry that over to the business, like, I don't have time to do this stuff, so we'll save that for episode 8. But that,
You do.
Yeah.
You do. It's, I think that any time that we're successful in something, I don't care if it's investing, I don't care if it's you're a good fisherman, I don't care what it is, you've made deposits. And every time in a relationship that I've had, I know when I've made deposits.
There's no neutral. You're either depositing or withdrawing.
Yeah.
There is no neutral.
Yeah, because the bank's going to take their interest.
Yes.
So if you do nothing, you're moving backwards.
Yeah.
And there have been times where I've asked myself, okay, why is this happening? Whatever relationship it is, personal or business. And I've always asked myself, how many deposits have you made in that individual's life in the last year, 6 months, whatever it is? Every single time, my answer was not much. Now, I want to make withdrawals. I'm asking. I get plenty of asks. Hey, clean your room. Get that report together. Hey, where's my 2019? Where's our P&L? But when you're out there and you're making those deposits and those relationships, you will always get it back.
Yeah. And you can even be proactive about that. That's actually one thing that I am good at is making this almost sounds like sleazy to say out loud or slimy, but like proactively making those deposits. If you know that you have something coming up that like a 6-day race, like you're going to schedule a date night, you're going to go take the kids away from the wife, like proactively making those deposits so that when you make that withdrawal, when you leave for those 6 days, and I travel all the time. I go to clients, I go to conferences, and 98% of the time Robin stays home with the kids. So I proactively make those deposits.
Yeah,
so
and that's not sleazy at all. I understand what you're saying. But the other side of it too is that so when you realize that maybe you haven't made those deposits, I mean, one of the greatest things, like Tony Robbins, he said, listen, when you look back as your life as a child, there's always so many memories, events that occurred. You can either wait for those events to happen, or you can actually go out and make it happen. I mean, for me to go pick up my son early and then take him for a guy's day, go to a movie and do this stuff, or my team. I had one of my newest team members. He had just been with us for about 6 months. He just went above and beyond. Just it is what it is. So when I saw his wife at our Thanksgiving, I walked over to her specifically. I said, I just want to let you know how much value this person is for our team. He goes above and beyond. He does more than what we ask, and I appreciate him. So there's times that we do it in advance, when we know, hey, I'm about to make a big ask and maybe I haven't made deposits in a little while. But then sometimes we do it after. I don't think it's bad. I think it's there's people that don't even realize that they're not doing it or are doing it. So it's being aware.
Yeah. So what do you guys, back to kind of what you said, I want to hear what you guys do for like date nights for the wife, for the kids. Do you guys do like family date nights? Like how do you guys do that?
Well, my kids know that me and my wife are the most important 2 people in our house. We told them that right off the bat, but they know why. For us to make this family work and to share the love and do the things that we need to do, my wife and I, we have to be like, we've got to be in tune, because if we're not, it's not going to work out. Now I'll pull them aside and say, look, I love you as much as I love your mom, and I love my daughter as much as I love my son. However, for this unit to properly function, this is what we have to do. Because there's times where we go out and they're going to grandma's and they're like, well, where are you going? I'm like, oh, well, we're going over to the West Coast for 3 days. And they're like, you're not bringing us?
What?
I'm like, this time, we're not.
Yeah.
But next time we may. Yeah. We definitely take time to, and look, and then there's other times too that we're very just understanding with each other. We just had our 11-year anniversary on Saturday. We retired, had a big day. I said, you know what? Let's keep the kids and let's just spend time with the family. So, went, had a great dinner with the kids, went home, watched a Disney movie, and then we just spent time together. So we also understand that it doesn't have to be so regimented where people say, well, on your anniversary, you must do X. No, we're going to do what's good for our family at that moment, at that time. And then there's other times where, yeah, we'll drop the kids off at grandma's and run down to Miami and spend the night and do a staycation. So I think that, yeah, it's an ebb and flow. You have to have good communication with your partner, understand that, the kids, I don't even know why I say kids. Like, I tell my kids all the time, they're little people. We talk to them like they're little people.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, like, my office manager, he hears some of the conversations I have with my son. He goes, "You talk to your son like that?" I'm like, "Why would I not? Why would I not?" Or my daughter, too. Like, so it's like, the reason you're going to grandma's is that me and your mom need a break because you got, and we lay it all out there. Like, yeah, we have been tough. I'm like, yeah, we know. That's why. So I think they know. And I think, too, the quicker you can get to a position where you're having conversations with everyone around you very genuinely, like, don't fight it. If you're mad, be mad. If you're happy, be happy. But just be matter of fact. And so that's how we're
working on that now. Like with the girls, when we put them to bed, my daughter's like, "Oh, you guys are just going to go sit and watch TV and hang out without us." I'm like, yes. Yes, we are.
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are, and that's
glorious.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to be glorious, and it's adult time, and that's okay. Mommy and Daddy need that time, but they just turned 7. My one daughter literally just turned 7 a couple weeks ago, so they don't get it yet because your kids are a little older.
Yeah, but they will. I've just been saying it longer.
Yes, yeah, that's true. That's true. We haven't been working on that with them. And that's the other thing you mentioned, like, if you're mad, you're mad. Like, we were working on that with them, is like feeling their emotions and kind of expressing. It's okay. Like, it's okay to have these conversations, to express those emotions. Like, you guys we love you, but you're a freaking pain in the ass sometimes. Like, we need quiet. That happened last night. Like, I'd had a long day, and we jumped in the pool. I said, "Hey, let's go on a family swim after dinner." So we went and we call it a night swim. We turn on the pool light and we swim. And they want to play Marco Polo, and I didn't want to play Marco Polo. I played with them for a little bit later, but I just said, "You know what? I need you guys to go swim in the pool. Mommy and Daddy are going to sit here in the hot tub for a few minutes and just chill out, and that's okay." And they did that. So they're getting to that point, but I'm starting to have those open and honest conversations with them. So what about you for date night and?
Yeah, same thing. It's kind of like you said, ebbs and flows, right? My kids are 6 and 3, so they're my son's full bore speed ahead. So he kind of gets it. Got to drop him off at grandma's. He's happy because it's definitely grandma's house.
McDonald's time.
McDonald's candy on every corner of the kitchen. I mean, he's like, "Grandma's, all right, let's go." But it's definitely important to make time for it. Even if we don't get rid of the kids, we'll try and do something that it's like kid friendly, which lately has been the beach for us. So like when the sun's kind of getting low and it's not so hot out, we'll head over to the beach, bring the dog. Great. And it's just a way for them to burn energy. And, at the same time, like, sometimes we don't get these quality times to, like, have a date night and talk, but we can use these times. Because, like, there's times where you need to communicate, and there's also times, like, especially when the kids are growing, to, like, witness the kids growing, right? Like, be with one another. Watching the kids is sometimes the most beautiful moments, right? So it's like sometimes just taking a seat back and enjoying those moments is really important for us. But and like you said, it's like not a set night. Like every Friday we're going on a date night. Like maybe before COVID, we had we were checking out new restaurants every weekend. We would, because there's a lot of new ones open up, but COVID kind of threw a wrench in that. But now it's just like, let's just find a nice place that's quiet and we can talk, right? Like at this point, like we don't get to talk a lot. So we try to do it. We've been traveling a lot, and we've had people in and out of our house the past few months. So we were trying to get back in a routine as far as trying to get out. But grandma's going to be a big help soon.
Yeah, we just reinstituted. So we kind of have a standing bi-weekly date night with our neighbor who's been watching the girls a lot, which has been great. One of the things we actually struggle with now is we obviously want to connect and want to talk. Robin more so than me, and I think that's a guy versus a girl thing. Like, I just don't communicate well. That's actually been a huge struggle, and we can maybe talk about that. But like, just sharing my feelings. Like, how was your day? It's good.
but the timing is crucial too.
Yeah.
So when does that happen?
True.
Yeah. So and that's a good point. So that happens like when I get that. When I come home, but I think about where I was going with that. Like when we get to date nights, and it happened, we just went away for the weekend. The wife and I actually got to go see Andy Frisella in first form. Went to Summer Smash 2021. It was it was incredible.
I was happy for you.
But anyways, so all that to say, like when we do find ourselves in a quiet place, like on date nights or on trips like that, it's so quiet. Like we don't talk, and we just kind of enjoy the quiet sometimes. Does that happen to you guys too?
Yeah.
Okay. Because like there's just times
that means
like
that means that you're communicating a decent amount. Then that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I'm actively trying to work on. I think that I can be better about that.
Yeah, my wife, even before kids, I mean, she knows when I used to, first come home. Now, I don't have that opportunity, but I'd first come home. I'm like, I just need 30 to 45, get back to neutral, and she would come out. And she's like, "What are you watching?" I'm like, I don't know. It's just stuff.
Yeah.
And so where I need to make a better, do a better job is that there are times when the kids go to bed, Friday night, glass of wine comes out, to turn the TV down and actually then be very, very focused.
Yeah.
Because that is when I am more susceptible, more open, that I really do want to connect, and she does as well.
Yeah.
So it's finding that time. It's a time of the day or how the two of you can make it work.
Yeah. It's always give and take, because it's like when I get home, my wife finally has a chance to like look at her phone and respond to some texts and do some stuff.
So
but
she's
it's
like, here's some kids.
Yeah, here's the kids, and then like maybe I'm fixing dinner, or we're in the kitchen, and it's like she's on her phone just playing catch up with all the friends, and it became like an issue for me, because it's like, all right, we've got like 2 hours before we start the routine of shower and brush teeth, story time, blah blah blah. So it's like I'm trying to communicate, and like you were saying earlier, it's like the attention's here, and I'm talking here, and it's just like, oh, it's kind of frustrating the shit out of me. But it's like it's kind of the growing up process, right? Because I had to have a serious talk with her, right? It's like, I want to be able to communicate. I want to be able to tell you how my day's going, how the podcast is going, blah 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 blah. Let's talk about the kids. Let's talk about this. And it's hard for me. It just frustrates me, right? Like you're talking to somebody and they're looking down and they're like, yeah. I was like, oh my god, no. I'm gonna break that phone.
But she knows that that's a thing for you now.
Now she does. She at first she thought, because I would like go and like put the phone to sleep, right? Like hit the little button and like put that thing down. Like and she's like, no.
Wait. So you were assuming that she knew based on that action that you knew what you were
passively aggressively. Is that what you call that, right?
I do it still.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah. And then I finally, she thought I was kind of joking, like, just put your phone down, like just put it on. And she's like, oh, okay, ha ha. And I'm like, finally had to like look, like it's really bugging me. It's really bugging the shit out of me. But I think those are important times where it's like, be aware that it was frustrating me instead of being like just frustrated, because I could have went the other route and just been like grumpy about it every night and been a dick and not had good communication, and that just spurred a whole nother fight. But thankfully I was able to like have a conversation with her. She understood, and
that's a huge problem. Assumptions has been a huge problem with Robin and I. And I'm sure with every marriage, but like we have this conversation. I'm like, so you're assuming that X, Y, and Z, and and that's what she was doing. So she's basically like attacking me on assumptions, and I'm like, that's not. Well, but you said this, and that's not what I meant. That's not at all.
And it goes the other way. I mean, I remember coming home one day, the kids were just going crazy. It was the summertime. As I walk in the door, house is a mess. Both me and my wife, we like to keep a pretty tidy house. She's sitting on the couch watching a show. So I walk into the bedroom, and I'm like, what the is going? I'm like, let's go out. Let's go back out there, because don't let your head start. So I come out, and she goes, the kids have been crazy. I've been running for 2 or 3 hours since I got home. I just sat down to watch this show, and I don't even know what's on. So here she had been working her tail off for 2-3 hours. I came in and immediately
assumed.
Totally assumed.
She's sitting there eating bonbons.
Had no clue.
Yeah.
But I was reminded. Wait, this is not. No. Let's go out there and let's talk. And I even told her in that moment. I said, I'm so glad that I came out and talked to you, because this is what I was thinking. She was like, no, I literally just sat down as the key, opened in the door. So we have to. We have to communicate, because you don't want to sit around. You don't want to be grumpy. You don't want to.
Exactly.
You don't want to have that kind of ill feelings towards your spouse, your partner.
Let's talk about withdrawals and deposits as far as being romantic, and that is not a double entendre at all. But so obviously with kids, that changes the dynamic of being intimate with your partner dramatically. We struggle with that from time to time. Sometimes we have plans for the evening, and we both lay down in bed and realize that we were just too gosh darn tired. So, one of the things that I've actually talked to some of my friends about is, and people just with this situation, is like making those deposits early on in the day. Foreplay isn't just like foreplay, like touch and things. Like for Robin or for I'd say for most wives, like doing the dishes, like cleaning up, That's all.
Yeah.
That's all foreplay. That's prepping the evening for a good time.
Yeah.
When you do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, little flowers, little chocolate, like a little,
Yeah.
like, oh, do you want this for dinner?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, so being intimate though, there's so many different ways that you can provide intimacy.
Yeah.
So my wife and I mean, and we talk about it all the time, and she wants to make sure that as a man that all my needs are being met, and they are. I mean, for us to be at a park, and I know this kind of sounds, not the normal reaction that a man would have. The kids could be playing. She'd come sit down, put her leg up against me, put her head on my shoulder, and then just walk away.
Yeah.
I'm good. Like that. That's. But everyone is very, very different.
Yeah.
Sure.
So some people. So in our relationship, we may not have that alone time. I think that we're alluding to, as much as maybe we did in our first 6 months, year. But I'm okay with that. So I think what it comes down to is we talk about it though, and she makes sure that I am good. I make sure that her needs are being met in that area, and as long as that is where the two of you need to be, you do you. Let other relationships, do it how they're going to do it. I think that sometimes that we always think, oh well, if this person's like this, like look, if there's an area of your life where you're having success, you know what? Don't try to re-engineer it. Just live there. We have plenty of other things we can try to work on.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, with kids, it's a game changer, man. It's like, we got 32 seconds. Go. It's like they're playing Barbie. Go.
Yeah.
It's like, it's super hard. So it's just the important to be aware of it, right? It's like, you don't want to catch yourself like with crazy thoughts and like, you're feeling deprived from the wife at home. So now you're getting googly eyes while you're at the gym or whatever. So I think that's maybe, is maybe a good telltale if you're just like, like checking out Instagram and hitting the like button when you shouldn't be, or whatever the case may be. It's like just being aware of like making the time at home. It's like you're saying, like the little foreplay, which would be, maybe, I've done like the fruit flowers or the chocolate dipped strawberries delivered surprisingly, right? Like just like small little things. But the intimacy part is just tough with the kids. Like, it's
have you
just
guys both? Have you read the 5 Love Languages?
Yeah.
No.
You have not? So
Uh-uh.
definitely read that. So I didn't know. So growing up, my mom, I remember coming back from my dad's funeral, and I was just telling her about all my goals and dreams. I'm a young kid, and going into all the stuff I wanted to do. And she goes, the most successful that I was in my entire life was when I was a stay-at-home mom. You two kids were at home, and when your dad would come home every night, I would cook him a great meal. And I didn't know at the time that's how, like, when I come home and my wife has a great meal, the house is not spick and span, but just it's straight.
Organized.
It's straight. The
Yeah.
kids are sitting at the table.
That's how I
For
grew up.
me, that is a love language of mine. That shows. I know she cares, but that's for me. That shows that she cares that much to do those things. So I think that book, if you have not read it, I try to read it every 5 to 7 years just to remind myself.
I gotta reread
yeah,
that
I'll
one.
have to
That's a
check
good
it
one.
out.
It's really good.
Yeah, it just goes over basically how you feel loved, and that's the essential part. And I think mine actually have evolved over time, but I love words of affirmation. That's one of them, and then physical touch. That's another one that I love, and it helps again when you understand how you operate or how things operate in your own life and your own being. That's what helps you get over or get through hard times or really grow. And it's super important. So yeah, very, very good book.
Yeah, I have to check it out.
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard of it. Yeah, I gotta check it out.
Very good.
So we covered being romantic, date nights, kids, family. Family goals, I think, is one of the things that I want to work on personally with Robin now that our schedule's kind of freed up. I think we had talked about in a previous episode is like writing down those personal goals, but doing that together as a family. I want to start getting into like teaching my kids about like mental toughness and some of this personal development stuff that I'm going through, because they're getting to that point where they're now little people and they can have conversation, and my daughters are asking some crazy questions and they're growing up, and it's very interesting. And yeah,
You got to get Jocko's book. He wrote a kid's book.
Did he
But
really?
It's for that age group, I believe. It's
Okay.
from like 7 to
It
13.
is.
I've been waiting for my son to get a little bit older, but it's got some of like
I had
core
no
lessons
idea.
of the. I don't know. Have you checked it out or no?
Oh yeah,
The
yeah.
kids book.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah. Andy Frisella has one as well.
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
I was
Okay.
gonna
Some
grab
kids'
Andy's.
Cool.
Yeah, but
they're
they're
all good.
they're just now to that point. Like my one daughter's starting to read by herself, and so
Yeah.
chapter books and stuff like that. So that's kind of my next mountain to climb is to work through that with them, and then put some really formal things in place with the family together, like a family mission statement and family goals and things like that. So because I've been on the journey that I have, I've done it all individually, so it needs to start permeating. I need to get better, and you'll never arrive at that, but I want to get better myself, but also start to it trickle into.
I mean,
the
so have
family
you
life.
talked? Excuse me. Have you talked to each of you about your kids being an individual from this family, how we function, how we operate outside this house?
No, not in a formal way.
As much as my son will understand, like
Yeah.
You might be
you're a
surprised.
Wyrick, like Wyrick's
Okay.
do X, Y, Z or whatever, but not to the extent of like maybe like deep conversation type stuff. More of like maybe
no,
how you behave.
Yeah,
maybe
that's exactly
right.
what I'm talking about.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, that's what kind of sets that foundation of, if you are a Wyrick, like how we operate, like things that we hold dear, characteristics that we have, things that we don't do, things that are okay. It's very, very important. I mean,
Yeah.
even
Well, it even came to head with that bully situation. It's like, look, dude, like I'm not all for you go and being the bully, but you have to stand up for yourself because what did you do when he pushed you down? Well, I didn't do anything.
We should have beat the shit
Yeah,
out of him.
well, listen here,
Show some jujitsu.
And the bottom line is you have to stand up for yourself, regardless of what happens. Like you can't let people, do that to you. Obviously, go tell the teacher. I'm not inducing a 5-year-old going to punch somebody's lights out, but I had to be very clear with them. Like, if a kid's pushing you down, it's very serious. You need to take it seriously, and it's not a joke. Like, one kid kicked him in the private area. Right? He told me about that. I'm like. I got super stern with him. I'm like, you have to stand up for you. But just as an example, as far as like, don't be a little bitch.
Well, it depends on the kid too, because like my son, I was more concerned about him being a bully.
Yeah.
He's very, very strong. He knows it. He's full tilt. So it was more of me having conversations with, hey, if there's a fight at school, I'm gonna go ask. I want to see the other kid. Now I said, and this is what I've always told him: if you feel threatened, I will go to the school. I will put you behind me, and I will say, my son said that he felt threatened and he did X. But I want to see the other kid because he better be a lot bigger than you. Because, so that was my question: is that as a family unit, whether you have kids or not, you got to start creating that identity as a family. There's things that we're very anti-bully. When I say very, like, freaking very.
My daughter can tend to be a bully sometimes, and I'm having some really serious talks with her. She bullies her sister too.
So, and that's when you have to remind. So my son said something. I have very good hearing, very way over, and I told him not to say it, and he said it again, and I came back over. I said, that right there. In this house, he goes, was I bullying? I'm like, yeah, you know what you were doing. So it's more about, it's not the specifics we're talking about right now, but it's more of the overall family unit. Like, what is your identity?
Yeah.
Because that goes through the entire family. Are you a family that always stays together? Are you a family where people are going in separate ways? I mean, you see, and this is not anything against a family who does this.
Yeah.
That's their identity. A family that you've got a mother going one way with a kid, father going the other way. They got separate sports doing different things. That's fine. Talk about why that family unit works for you.
Yes.
And our family unit, we don't do that. No right or wrong. But you have to create that identity and why you do it. Same thing with our company. Talk about a mission statement. Listen, I don't want wallpaper. Like, I want the mission statement to, like, my company to know, listen, there's things that we just absolutely don't do. And I tell my team, if you make a mistake, no problem. We'll go to the client. We'll say, we made a mistake. And I will say, as a partner in the company, I take full responsibility. What we don't do is we don't lie, cover it up, hide it, or do something immoral. So I think that, especially for young people, they really have to have they have to have the foundation set, but then they also have some type of direction. Like, within this family unit, like, what is respected or what's expected of me? And if you don't give them that, their friends will.
Yeah.
And is that what you really want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. No, I definitely don't want that. And I want to get better at that, because that was something, like, in my family, we didn't necessarily build that identity. We didn't. I mean, we did. There was not a lot of communication in my family, like talking about things. We just kind of did stuff. So we were always doers. We just went and did stuff, and we had people over, and we were just going and doing and going and doing. And we didn't sit around and talk through a lot of things. And that's what I'm fighting even actively right now, is just going and doing, because I am a doer. Like, if you need me to get something done, my ability for you to bring me a problem and for me to get that shit done from start to finish, I will make it happen. And if there's something that I want, I'm going to make it happen. So I'm definitely a man of action, but taking the time to communicate through that and just understanding the why and the how, and it's tough.
Takes more time.
Yeah, it does. And it's effort, because I don't want it to take more time. Exactly what I'm talking about.
I get it.
It's slowing me down. It's like back to the Robin thing. Like, I didn't want her to bike with me because she was going to slow me down, and that's totally not the way to look at that.
But I think it comes full circle. We talked about, are we trying to get there by ourselves? Or do we want our team, whether it's a family unit or our business, do we want them to arrive with us? Do we want our spouse to be on that mission with us? Or do we want 10 years from now, we're divorced, we see the kids every other weekend? No. So every now and then, we have to slow down. And, I mean, don't get me wrong, put them in a red wagon and I'll pull them. I mean, sometimes I do want to, them to get to my
Speed it up a
speed.
little bit.
But we definitely have to slow down sometimes and get off that carousel.
Yeah, it's super important.
Definitely.
Awesome, guys. You guys have anything else to add?
Oh, I think that's it.
It's a good podcast today, guys.
Yeah.
Good job. Good job.
Stuff.
Awesome, guys. Well, I appreciate it. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, share this podcast with everybody you know, and we will see you next time. Thanks, guys.